Researchers studied 39,000 workers across 200 companies, and they found that the better you are at your job, the more likely your promotion is to ruin your career. I know that sounds backwards. Like, your whole life, you've been told that if you work hard enough and perform well enough, you move up. That's the deal, right? You grind, you get noticed, you get the title, you get the raise, and your life gets better. But what if the entire system is rigged so that the moment you finally make it, you actually start losing? Not because you got lazy, not because you stopped trying, but because the job you got promoted into requires a completely different set of skills. Nobody checked whether you actually have them. There's a name for this. It's called the Peter Principle. And it explains why your boss is probably stressed and terrible at their job, why 60% of new managers fail within 2 years, and why that promotion you're chasing right now might be the most expensive mistake you ever make. But here's what really got me. It's not just a career problem, it's a money problem. Because the moment someone accepts a promotion, their lifestyle increases to match the new salary. The nicer the apartment, the better the car. And by the time they realize the job is crushing them, they can't afford to go back. They're financially locked into a role that's making them miserable. So today, I want to show you how this trap works, who it catches, and then give you the exact conversation to have with your manager that lets you get the raise without ever stepping into it. That conversation toward the end, that's the one you're really going to want to hear. So, back in 1969, this guy named Lawrence Peter wrote a book. And it was supposed to be a joke, honestly, like a satire about corporate life. But it accidentally became one of the most important ideas in management theory. And his idea was so simple it almost sounds too obvious. In any company, people keep getting promoted as long as they're good at their job. You start somewhere, you do well, someone notices, and boom, you move up. You figure out the new role, you do well again, you move up again. And this keeps going until you land in a role where the skills you need are completely different from everything that got you there. And that's where it stops. You're not doing great in this new job, so nobody is promoting you anymore. But here's the cruel part. You usually don't get fired either. You just kind of sit there, stressed out, underperforming, and blocking anyone below you who might actually be good at the role. And when you think about what that actually means, it's kind of insane. The system is literally designed to take you out of the job you're amazing at and then permanently install you in the one job you can't handle. And the numbers back this up. Research shows that about 60% of new managers fail within the first 24 months. And 70% of them didn't even ask for the promotion. Someone just tapped them on the shoulder and said, "Congratulations, you're in charge now." Nearly 1 in 5 later said they actively regret taking the role. You see this play out everywhere. Like, think about the best software engineer at any company. This person writes beautiful code, and they solve problems nobody else can touch. So the company rewards them by making them a manager. But now, instead of writing code, they're sitting in budget meetings, mediating arguments between developers, and writing performance reviews. Completely different skills. And suddenly the company has lost its best engineer, and what they got back is a manager who has no idea what they're doing. Everyone loses. And nobody admits it because that would mean saying out loud, "We promoted the wrong person." Now you might be thinking, "Okay, Clara, but that's just a theory from the 60s. Where's the actual proof?" So there's this study published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics where they analyzed data from over 200 companies, tracking around 39,000 sales workers. And sales are perfect for testing this because there's nowhere to hide. You either hit your number or you didn't. And what they found about who gets promoted was exactly what you'd expect. The people who sold the most became managers. High performers move up. That makes sense, right? You reward the people who are crushing it. But then they looked at what happened to the teams that these new managers took over. And this is where it gets really ugly. It turned out that the better someone was at selling, the worse they were at managing. Like, there was actually a negative correlation. So when superstar salespeople became managers, their teams performed measurably worse than teams led by average salespeople who got the same promotion. And when you think about it, it makes total sense. Because selling is a lone wolf thing. It rewards aggression, individual focus, and honestly, a little bit of selfishness. You're obsessed with your own numbers, your own commission check. But managing requires the complete opposite. You have to be patient. You have to coach people. You have to actually celebrate someone else's win more than your own. So the skills that made you dominant in one role end up actively destroying you in the other. And the study found something else that's kind of infuriating. You know who actually made good managers? It was the salespeople who had a track record of collaborating on complex deals, the ones who helped their teammates close difficult accounts. But those people rarely got promoted because the system only looks at the flashy individual numbers. It's completely blind to the skills that actually matter for the next job. So here's what most people tell themselves when they start struggling in the new role. They say, "I'm smart, I'll figure it out. I just need more time." And that's the most dangerous thought you can have, because it keeps you stuck for years. There's this statistical concept called regression to the mean, and it explains exactly why figuring it out almost never happens the way you think it will. So to get that promotion, you probably needed to have a spectacular year, right? You crushed your targets. But performance in any given year is a mix of skill and luck. Maybe the market was hot, or maybe you landed one massive client, or maybe your biggest competitor went bankrupt. So when you get promoted based on that peak year, your performance naturally drifts back toward your actual average. The lucky streak ends. But now you're in a harder job with higher expectations. So what looks like you suddenly becoming incompetent is really just a normal statistical correction. The system selected you at your absolute best and then set you up for a fall. And here's the part nobody warns you about. It's not just your performance that suffers, it's you as a person. Because when your whole identity is wrapped up in being the person who got promoted, and then you start struggling, you don't just feel stressed, you feel like a fraud. You start working insane hours to compensate, not because the work requires it, but because you're terrified someone's going to figure out you don't belong there. You stop sleeping well. You bring that anxiety home. And remember what we talked about at the beginning. By this point, your lifestyle is already inflated, so you can't step back even if you wanted to. You're earning more but enjoying less of everything. That's negative budgeting in disguise. You technically got a raise, but your quality of life actually went down. All right, so how do you actually handle this? Because you obviously can't just walk into your boss's office and say, "No thanks, I'd rather not move up." That's gonna sound like you've given up. So here's what you have to do. You have to separate two things that everyone always smashes together, which is the money and the role. Because let's be honest, most of us don't actually want the promotion itself. We want the raise. We don't want the meetings, the politics, or the responsibility for other people's results. We just want the bigger paycheck that comes with the title. So the conversation with your manager needs to go something like this. You say, "I'm genuinely honored by this offer, but I've been thinking about where I actually drive the most value for this company, and it's in doing the work itself, not managing other people who do it. What if we explored a path where I take on more complex projects, mentor some of the junior people, and we look at a compensation adjustment that reflects that, but I stay in my core role?" And what's happening here is you're not saying you're scared of responsibility. You're saying you know exactly where you create the most value, and you want to double down on that. You're actually saving the company from gaining another bad manager. And here's something that genuinely surprised me. In many industries now, especially tech, senior individual contributors actually earn as much as, or even more than, their managers. Staff engineers at major companies are earning $400,000 or more. They have way less stress. They spend more time on work they actually enjoy. And when layoffs come, it's the middle managers who get cut. The people who actually build the product are the ones who stay. Now, if your company says the only way to get a raise is to become a manager, that's a massive red flag. It means they don't understand what value actually looks like. And that might be your signal to start looking for a company that does. So here's what all of this comes down to. Most people picture their career like a ladder where you just keep climbing. But the smartest person in the room isn't always the one with the biggest title. Sometimes it's the person who climbed to the exact height where they were happiest and most effective. And then they just had the discipline to stop. They didn't chase the title. They didn't let their lifestyle inflate past the point of no return. They played the long game with their money management instead of trading their sanity for a 20% raise that ends up costing them 50% more stress. And I know what makes this hard. It's the social pressure. It's your parents asking, "So did you get the promotion?" It's your friends comparing titles at dinner. It's that voice in your head that tells you staying put means you failed. But wealth is quiet. It always has been. The people who look the most successful from the outside are often the most stressed and the most financially fragile on the inside. So the real financial psychology move is just knowing what you're good at, knowing what you're worth, and having the courage to stay right there while everyone else climbs into jobs they hate. And that's how you actually win. And that's all for today. If you find this video eye-opening, make sure you hit the like button and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more of these kinds of videos. Thanks for watching.